So candidly, you're not our competition. All right, you guys are a high-tax state, we're not. So if you want a high-tax state, you're going to move to Michigan or Wisconsin. If you want a low-tax state, you're going to move to Indiana. It's the truth. We don't compete against you. In fact, we've competed against you in the last 18 months one time in the last 18 months. And you guys have done well, and we'll see the private sector job growth. You're actually doing better than a lot of states are. But our competition isn't you, and it isn't Michigan, it isn't really Kentucky, right? It isn't really even Texas and North Carolina. It's Beijing, it's Shanghai, it's Manchester, England, it's parts of India, right? 30 of the 150 deals we've won so far this year, we've competed exclusively with overseas locations. And my guess is if you talk to people in your state, you're experiencing the same thing, where people are making a decision about where they're going to invest. Are they going to invest in America, or are they going to invest in India, or are they going to invest in Europe? The governor, and actually we'll get back to the slide here, but I read the Wall Street Journal every day. I imagine a number of you do. There's an article in there about a company called Geely. I don't know if any of you have heard of Geely or not. It's a large automobile manufacturer in China that's just acquired Volvo, amongst other things. And we were there pitching them about about opening a location in Indiana. Right? We went to see the chairman, and the governor gave this very precise pitch about why Indiana was the right place for him to locate, about how Subaru had done it, how Honda had done it, how Toyota had done it. It was a great pitch, really good pitch. And the guy the chairman looks and says, "No, I don't think I'm not investing in America right now. There are too many uncertainties. I'm not investing in America. I'm going to go to Europe." And then he went off and bought Volvo. So the point is that you're competing in a world economy, right? And dollars move easily across the globe, much more easily than they used to. And so unless you are, we have to not only create a competitive environment for your state, but for the country. So from the state's perspective, we did a bunch of things in our state to change the business climate. One of the things we did was, and that's not on this list, is eliminate the inventory tax. We moved to a single sales factor tax, so we don't tax people who employ. So unless you make sales in the state of Indiana, you don't pay a corporate income tax. We did property tax relief and regulatory reform. We exempt patents made in the state of Indiana from income tax. We leased the toll road. Right? We had a toll road in the state of Indiana. Some of you perhaps have driven it if you've gone off to the East Coast from here. We leased that for $3.5 billion, and it had the only state in the country with a fully funded infrastructure program. And we did the most controversial thing you can do in the state of Indiana, and who knows what that is? No, we didn't tax basketball. No. That would have been actually more controversial, or single class, we never even thought of that one, or single class basketball. We went to daylight savings time. We adopted daylight savings time in the state of Indiana. Now to you in Wisconsin, you go, well, of course you did. But that was a big deal in our state, and we lost the State House as a result of it. But seriously, we did. We lost the State House on daylight savings time. But we had the gumption to do that, and it's the single most important economic development tool we've had for bringing new jobs has been daylight savings time. And if you have questions about why, I'll expound on that later. And then, the whole bunch of things have gone into creating a different business environment when people make locational choices. And certainly there's more that we'd like to do in the governor's last 2 years in office to increase the attractiveness of Indiana as a business location. But so far this year, the first 9 months of the year, Indiana is number 5 totally across the country in private sector job growth, and we are number 2 on a per capita basis. In this case, you can see actually Wisconsin is well above the national average on per capita job growth, but at 1.6%, much better than your neighbors, and obviously better than Wisconsin, rather than Michigan, who continues to lose jobs. This really is our indicia of how successful we have been in creating an environment in which people choose to take their personal and financial capital, themselves, their personal capital, and their financial capital, their dollars, won, yen, euros, and invest it someplace, right? And we're doing much better than our surrounding states, though not nearly as well as we'd like to. And we've done that because we've really changed the way Indiana, the cost structure for business in the state of Indiana. And it was very intentional, some very intentional choices that we made. And this came out this week. We're the top state in the Midwest and number 6 nationally from Area Development Magazine. We have something called a AAA bond rating. Now, many of you may have forgotten what that is, but we're very proud of our AAA bond rating. And what this means to companies is, and we have a AAA credit rating from all 3 of the rating agencies. What this means to companies is that we are unlikely to raise their taxes or their fees or other ways of doing business or other costs of doing business, because primarily because we don't have to. Right? We've shown the political will, both Democrats and Republicans in the State House, to be very parsimonious about how we operated government. And as a result of that, in downtimes like we are in, we've maintained our AAA. We've developed and maintained our AAA credit rating. We're one of the nation's lowest business tax and regulation states, and we do have regulation in the state of Indiana. But it's firm and it's fast, and that's another theme that I want to get across today, is the speed at which we do things. The speed at which we do things is really, in many respects, our greatest asset. How long is it, for instance, do you guys have a Bureau of Motor Vehicles up here? The Wisconsin generally is a pretty efficient state. How long does it take to get, what's your average wait time at the BMV here? An hour? Pardon me? 5 minutes? What do you guys think it is? Anybody know? It's 6 minutes in Indiana. The average wait time is 6 minutes for a transaction in Indiana, and we monitor that every day, right? So we monitor and measure outcomes like that. We know exactly what the wait time is for a building permit, what the wait time, what's your turn on, anybody know your turn on how long it takes to get a tax refund? A week? Within a week? That's really good. That's really good. Ours is 5 days, but it's really good. That's terrific. Illinois is 372 days. Of course, we also are a national leader in the cost of doing business. This is not just tax-based. This is the cost of, the all-in cost of government, including things like workers' compensation. And best in the Midwest in terms of low taxes. We really are focused on being a low-tax location. Let me fast forward what that has allowed us to do. So in a tough time like we have been in, we found that this allowed us to win a lot of competitions against competitive consolidations. So last year we really focused on competitive consolidations, which we viewed as in the new normal, right? A world in which you have where you're going to produce 11 million vehicles rather than 17 million vehicles, all right? You just don't need as many places to make gaskets. Right? If you're a gasket maker, right, if you're only selling 60% of the gaskets that you used to sell, you probably don't need both factories, right? And if you had a gasket factory in Indiana and a gasket factory someplace else, you were going to close one of those factories that were each running at 50% capacity and move to a state and move into a factory where you were only going to operate, you're going to operate 100%. And that's pretty simple. And we were really effective last year and have been this year in doing that. Of those, so for the last 18 months, we've won 70 of 71 competitive consolidations.